title of my talk today is Theosophy is as Theosophy does. And what I want to do is explore how the Ageless Wisdom teachings can be embodied and employed in our everyday lives to enhance self-awareness and promote spiritual growth. So we have a choice each and every day. We can call ourselves Theosophists and study the ancient wisdom teachings and develop an ever more comprehensive knowledge. And there's a myriad of fascinating topics that we can study. And this is more than a lifetime's work. And we will leave this incarnation with a lot more knowledge, but not necessarily wiser. We can teach others this knowledge and build a pyramid of knowledge together. And the knowledge can be shared amongst like-minded people. But unless this knowledge is used for our own spiritual development, to help others, to transform the lower vibrations of our world, to spiritualize matter and make a difference, it is simply learning for learning's sake. For wisdom's only gained when knowledge is applied. And applied in our everyday life. And we come to understand or stand under ever expanding and greater truths of an idea or an ideal. And we can only do this when we apply this knowledge in ways that no book and only life can and will teach us. That is why we are in incarnation on this school for souls, to learn and grow and evolve through experience on this planet Earth. We also know that the complete wisdom teachings of the ages have not as yet been revealed to mankind in completion, but they're gradually given out by masters to amanuensis scholars like Blavatsky, Bailey, Besant, and others. And these are only given out when we collectively reach certain milestones in our conscious evolution and are ready for such revelations. They are released into our plane of existence to meet the need when mankind has reached a stage whereby we have enough soul contact, are responsible with the discrimination and the discernment capabilities needed to put these teachings into practice, so that they serve to guide our spiritual growth and advancement without causing potential harm. So in the West, in this modern age, we are extremely privileged to have access to a vast knowledge of ancient wisdom teachings. And I believe we have a responsibility to live and breathe the insights and understandings we glean. We have a responsibility to consciously take control of our own evolution and from our study and use the information for our spiritual growth, self-awareness, as well as in service to others. So many in theosophical circles seem to see personal self-development as somehow separate to their service work and their study, as if it belongs to a creed of New Age thinkers and has little to do with the more advanced knowledge of Theosophy. There is great importance given to spreading this knowledge, which is much needed, but I feel we often lack guidance on how to apply this knowledge in living our lives, how to bring it to life and embody the principles. And Blavatsky wrote, Theosophy is who Theosophy does, not thinks, not studies, not feels, but does. The universe is worked and guided from within outwards. So I feel passionately that we need to begin the process of really changing our world by seeking our own inner change. These words are the basis for a lecture I'm giving at the coming European Congress in York this August, in which I explore anger healed from within outwards as a means toward addressing world conflict. So many sadly will limit their areas of study to include knowledge that comes only from Theosophy or even only certain theosophical teachings and not others. And in doing so, they miss out on a wealth of potential insights and expansion of their own understanding and its application. Theosophy is not the only source of wisdom in the world, and I would encourage you to be open, to let every book, film, and life experience that comes your way to be an opportunity for growth and learning, to question what you know and believe. Much in the world of quantum physics, psychology, and philosophy either embodies theosophical principles or adds to and expands on our understanding of them. In my experience, when you seek further understanding, your soul and your higher self will bring incredible insights in the most extraordinary and almost magical ways. You come into a flow of synchronicity such that exactly what you need to know and understand and what serves your highest good comes literally moment by moment. For example, last night I watched a film, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. We Have Made Contact. Dr. Stephen Greer lifts the veil on contact with beings from other planets. And he brings a recognition of especially our need to study and advance our understanding of consciousness, because these civilizations are far in advance of us. They come to us peacefully, seeking to help. We know from theosophical teachings that our personality is only an effective vehicle for the work of the soul once it is integrated and coordinated. And that which is unconscious becomes conscious in the developed man or woman. This process of self-development or self-redemption is vital to lift the vibrational frequency, to open the higher centers, to build the antakarana, and to face the challenges of initiations that build the soul-infused personality and enable work of great service and contribution to take effect. In this way, we are guided from within outwards. We come to understand the importance of the ancient axiom we glean from Socrates: man, know thyself. And in doing so, we find our own unique spiritual path as we come to realize we are the path. Our life is our soul path. We expand our self-awareness, and in doing so, we expand our consciousness. And when we expand our individual consciousness, we contribute immensely to the expansion of consciousness of all of mankind. So let us look at some ways of embodying the ancient wisdom teachings that can and will enable us to give great service in our lives. And firstly, there is the need to recognize and identify yourself and others as a soul. And this is a big shift, but once we shift to this perspective, we automatically begin to operate from the higher centers of Atma, recognizing the unity with all, from Buddhi, recognizing that love is the basis for this unity, and higher manas, the higher mind, whereby we use our creative intelligence to seek to understand a situation from a soul perspective and act accordingly. We lose our ego attachment to an idea or an ideal we believe to be right, and open to new understanding, new perspectives. We come to think, intend, and act harmlessly as we recognize our essential unity and experience that if we harm another, because we are all one, we're harming ourselves. This is basic theosophical teachings in practice. We come to understand that love is connection, and that right relations with all sentient beings can only occur when we feel this connection and honor it, and return to it when we are not connected There's an increasing desire as we live life as a soul, or from the perspective of our soul, to maintain and return to a state of inner peace, and to address anything that disturbs this peace. A recognition of when we are being presented with information through our interactions with others about that within us that needs healing or redeeming or transforming. So other people, other situations in our life are there to act as a mirror, to show us what needs healing and redeeming within our psyche, the ways in which our personality is not yet integrated and coordinated, that in our unconscious mind that needs redeeming and lifted up into the light of consciousness. So there's a recognition of what needs redeeming within us. And from that place of recognition, we have a choice. We can either just push it back down and, okay, that's how I am, or we can choose to do something about it. And this is the path of spiritual growth, when we choose to look at that which needs redeeming. And this develops the desire or the aspiration to change and to grow and to become all that we are in truth, to open to the inflowing Christ consciousness, to realize our God self. So by consciously deciding to embark upon a journey of healing, to redeem the dweller on the threshold within us, and that is all that is unredeemed within our psyche, we shine the light of consciousness on that which is still unconscious within us. We apply our theosophical knowledge to heal within all the misperceptions, the ideas, the ideals, the conditionings, the past traumas, and unresolved emotional issues that determine our behavioral responses. And this is from this life and previous lives. We will become aware of that which we've brought through into this life that needs redeeming. And life will give us opportunities to see it. And this is especially any pattern that keeps repeating in your life. If you have the same old relationships and the same old things keep on happening, and life keeps on holding up that mirror, there's a reason for that. Life is showing you what needs redeeming, how your perspective is perhaps not seeing the truth of the situation. So life will show us what needs healing if we're open to seeing it. And this is where we need to lift up into the heart qualities of courage, to have the courage to look at ourselves in truth. And this is how the process of personality integration and coordination is something that has to be actively engaged with. And this is what we're doing. So therefore, every relationship and interaction with other people will serve as this mirror where we can see our truth, we can see our beauty and our goodness, or we can see the areas in our life in which we're not expressing these soul qualities. So the true beauty of living your life as a soul is that you can see others as a soul. So when you decide to live your life from the perspective of the soul, really what you're doing is you're lifting up to a higher perspective. Okay, you're viewing life through the eyes of the soul. And then when you see others through the eyes of the soul, you will recognize their soul. But you will also be more willing to accept, to forgive, to have compassion for their personality defects or the areas in which they still need to heal and grow. We become more understanding, with greater acceptance of the struggles of another. We lift anger and frustration to forgiveness and compassion more readily. These are our theosophical teachings. This fosters patience and perseverance in our dealings with all living beings. Many people living today are still focused on the evolutionary arc of gaining experience in the material world and have not yet embarked upon the return journey to the soul or made any appreciable soul contact. And we need to be aware of this. I want to just explain a little bit about our mind, especially the nature of the conscious and the unconscious mind. Okay. So we can think of our mind when we're looking at the conscious and unconscious aspects as being like an iceberg. For most people, the conscious mind only makes up about 5%. Obviously, as you raise your consciousness, as you practically apply your theosophical teachings, the ancient wisdom teachings, you increase your consciousness. So this ratio will change. You'll have more up here and less down here. As this is redeemed, so it becomes conscious. And the iceberg that we can see, that the energy that we consciously radiate or vibrate out into the world expands. So the unconscious mind is this other 95% in most people, and this governs our behavior whenever we are caught up in thinking. So I'm going to say that again, because this is a real key to understanding. So whenever you are in your thinking lower mind, your behavior will be determined by that which is in your unconscious mind. And this is where all our beliefs, our values, our conditionings, our issues, our emotional traumas, our childhood experiences, some of our past life experiences, it's all in there. There's lots of good stuff, but there's lots that self-sabotages, there's lots that doesn't really serve us. Much of, in this lifetime, much of what is to be found in your unconscious mind was laid down from age 0 to 7. And this is the quote, "Give me the 7-year-old and I'll give you the man." And this is really the programs that we gleaned from our experience from when we were born to about 7. And these are all the programs and understandings we glean to help us to understand how the world works, to understand how to survive in the world. So depending on our family situation, depending who we were exposed to, what we were exposed to, will very much depend what values, what ideas, what ideals, what beliefs and conditionings that we have down in our unconscious mind. And when we're caught up in thinking, we will behave in a reactive way based on those programs. Now, those programs might be ones that are really good and serve us well, but sometimes the way a 5-year-old understands something is very different to how a 55-year-old would understand that same situation. And yet, when in a reactive interaction, we find we're behaving like the 5-year-old. Or we have a default, we keep going back to behaving some old patterns in there. So when life holds up a mirror, and it's our interactions with other people that do this for us, it's showing us, life shows us what is in our unconscious mind. And I have found that once you have made a commitment to your soul, a commitment to embody spiritual growth, your soul seems to have an agenda. It'll just bring up the next thing for you to address, the next healing. It brings them up as you're ready to deal with them. And you'll be like, why is this happening to me? I thought I dealt with this. And it's like, no, it's bringing it up for your awareness, for you to look at it, for you to transmute those energies from a etheric body point of view. I might say to shift the energies from the lower chakras to the higher chakras, to integrate the personality and lift up into a soul perspective. In terms of the emotional astral body, to instead of being polarized in our emotional astral body, to lift up into our Buddhic nature. And really, I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute or two about the book I've written, because there are certain practices in yoga, there's certain practices in psychology that enable us to shift what is unconscious to become consciously aware of it. Okay, once you're consciously aware of something, you can't not know it. You can push it back down, you know, you can pretend it's not there and you can carry on, but life will just keep on bringing it up. And what will happen, even if you feel like you've dealt with it, it'll come up again on another turn of the spiral. So you'll think, I dealt with that issue. But no, as you consciously grow and evolve, it comes up again on a deeper level, if you like, with further healing. And this is really how we develop. This is how we integrate our personality, so that we become integral, so that what we consciously say, we do, so that our behavior is in alignment with our words. And this is really what personality integration and coordination is all about. So the majority of people on our planet today are polarized in their astral desire nature. And this determines how they think, feel, and act every day and in every situation. They're often not consciously aware of how they're behaving or even think about how they're behaving. But all of this creates the overshadowing energy of our planet. And we as Theosophists, we're not immune to the influence of the myriad of thought forms on the astral plane, unless we begin to be conscious of when we are being affected by them. And that's really important, to be consciously aware enough to know when you're being affected by those mass thought forms on the astral plane. Take fear, for example. We've been bombarded by messages of fear and fear-inducing thought forms, especially in the last few years. And this has presented an opportunity as Theosophists to observe, to discern, and to potentially arise above the thinking of the masses and ascertain whether there's any real basis for this fear, and to question the motives behind its dissemination, and ultimately determine what we can do to help, to redeem, to transmute that fear and return to love and connection. Because fear is an absence of love. Fear is simply a disconnection from your higher self, from your soul. So this opportunity in the last has presented a mirror for many, revealing those aspects of their personality vehicle that still need redeeming. For many, it's posed serious questions for self-reflection on just how far we are living our theosophical beliefs. For example, did the whole last couple of years, did it invoke courage and bring forth our true altruistic nature with a focus on helping others? Or did we give in to doubt and despair, focusing on our own experience and a growing sense of isolation? Remember, fear is disconnection and isolation. Love is connection. Did we question the narrative? Did we do our own research and discern the highest truth we could without being divisive? Did we take the opportunity, for example, to connect with nature in the natural world and question the way we live and seek a simpler, less materialistic life? We saw the effects when we stopped flying and we stopped driving our cars on the material world. Did we pause and think about this and how we live? Did this global challenge bring out the best in us, our soul qualities? Or did it reveal those parts of us that still require some self-development? It has certainly been an amazing opportunity for greater awareness of our world situations, with many revelations, not all of them good. And a greater self-awareness of where we, each of us, where we are on our particular path of spiritual evolution. for many in the world, the last couple of years, I believe, will have initiated some soul contact, perhaps for the first time. And this has come about through their disillusionment with the world, and a dawning realization that the meaningful life they seek is not to be found in the outer material world, especially amongst young people. There's incredible disillusionment and discontent, and almost a feeling of giving up on the world. For others, it was an opportunity to work on lifting up into the power of the higher mind, to understand, to stand under the truth, put their own safety on the line in revealing hidden truths, and hold a space for trust, hope, and love when fear threatened to swamp the lower astral nature. So challenging situations always provide an opportunity to lift your energy from the solar plexus chakra, the sacral chakra, and the root chakra, all that have a focus on me and my individual experience, up into the higher centers, beginning with the heart as a focus on we and what is needed for the group, for the community, for the nation, for our human family. This capacity to lift up into the higher mind, seeking understanding, and view the emotional response with detachment and compassion is ultimately the challenge we face as we approach the second initiation, and also as we approach personality integration and coordination. So one of the reasons that I felt called to write an ebook, an entire book about this one little yoga posture, Makrasan, the crocodile, very simple posture, as I recognized the need for a very practical way to make a difference, to lift and redeem lower vibrational energies up into the higher centers, but also to give people a practical way to deal with their personality issues and challenges when they come up. So it embodies theosophical teachings. And there's so much depth to this posture that I had to write an entire book about it. I've probably been teaching it for about 17 years, and I've seen it have profound effects on people almost instantaneously. It's used in war zones. It's used for trauma. It's used when people are overwhelmed by anxiety, worry, fear, doubt, any strong emotion. If someone has just had a major trauma, it will calm. It is a posture that has the capacity to shift attachments of the solar plexus up into the heart. And because you lie on the floor with your forehead attached over your hands, it connects the head and the heart. So quite often what will happen, say for example, you've just had a major conflict with someone and you're feeling really angry, really upset, really hurt, and it's going round and round in your mind and you don't know what to do with the energy. You know there's no chance of resolution until you shift the anger energy, you shift the emotional energy that's pouring through your etheric body, and you can't think straight while it's doing that. I talk about this in my European Congress talk, how the animal part of your brain, the amygdala, the limbic system gets stimulated and you go into survival mode. So we've got to calm down and come back into conscious awareness, where we can look at this from our higher mind, from our higher self. And to do that, coming into this yoga posture is one of the ways that will gently bring you into your higher self. And suddenly you can gently shift all the energy out of your etheric body, out of your astral. And you open up to the intuitive wisdom that comes through the Ajna center. And you start to see the situation differently. You might think, oh, yeah, they're doing their best. Or you might think, oh, yeah, they had bad news last week. Or you recognize your part in a conflict. You recognize the other person is, doing the best they can with where they are at the moment. You recognize that they've strayed from contact with their soul, that they're feeling lost and fearful and disconnected. And you start to get insights into how this particular situation, this feels just like when and you look back in your memories and see that you have several scenarios where you've felt this way before, and the same situation has come up for you before. And you start to get a much deeper awareness and understanding. And if you hold yourself in the posture, what happens is it opens the heart chakra. And it opens to that Christ consciousness, which will come pouring in and enable acceptance of the situation. It will enable you to lift into compassion. It will enable ultimately for you to see the truth of the situation and to come to forgiveness of both the other person and yourself. And it's only through going through this process that then you shift to a higher state of conscious awareness with regard to this particular situation. It's like you've gone deep down into your unconscious mind and you've pulled a weed out by the roots. So that weed's not going to grow again. And that's what this posture will do. And so when you start to understand this, not just from a theoretical point of view, but you actually put it into practice, I have seen teenagers who were vile creatures turn into nice people after doing this posture for 10 minutes. I've seen a little high-functioning autistic little boy come out of a yoga class and hug his mum. And she burst into tears because spontaneous hugging from her son was not something she was used to. I have seen people shift traumas. I can think of one lady I dealt with who shifted an incest trauma from 50 years ago when she spent time in this posture because she was ready. She had me there supporting her, but she was ready to let that go. And that's the power of this practical, very practical application of our Theosophy, because once you let these parts of your dweller on the threshold go, they've gone. They're redeemed. They're no longer unconscious. They will no longer rule your reactive behavior. They won't be what comes up and is your default setting in the way you respond to people. You transform and you change, and it opens your heart, and you become someone who is just changed. And because your vibration has changed and what you are giving out changes, you change others around you. And so I'm going to show you some information before I carry on, just so that you can sort of visualize what this posture looks like. It's not hard, anyone can do it. So that's me lying on a rug in my lounge in Makrasan. So you can see I've got one hand on top of the other, my forehead on my hands, relaxed across my shoulders, relaxed through my hips. And this is important. Heels are turned in and toes are turned out, because this opens the lower centers. When you're in this posture, for example, you learn to breathe from your diaphragm. You can't chest breathe. And it stimulates the vagus nerve. So just by lying in this position, you will relax your body. You'll bring your body into what's called a parasympathetic system of being. And that reduces the stress response. When you spend time in this posture regularly, you build what's called vagal tone, or you build a resilience to stress, because you calm your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve becomes the dominant system in your nervous system, so that staying calm and relaxed in any situation becomes your natural response, rather than flying off the handle and going straight into the fight, flight, stress response. So it's a simple, but what I've done in the book is I've unraveled this. And as Theosophists, you will understand a lot of the principles behind what I've unraveled. I've talked about what it does in terms of your chakras. I've talked about what it does in terms of balancing the masculine and feminine energies, the yin and the yang. What I've talked about how it brings heart and head together into a coherence. And this is really the integration between your heart intelligence and your mind intelligence. It grounds your energy. So it puts you in touch with the prana of the earth. I could go on. Obviously, there's a whole book's worth. But what I said, the reason I wanted to bring it to your attention is because most people can lie in this posture reasonably comfortably. If you're not comfortable around your ankles, you can put cushions under your ankles. You can put a rug or a cushion under your chest. If this is not comfortable for your arms, you can cross your arms and place your head on your arms, or you can have your hands on your shoulders. And I include a video and etc. where I teach you these modifications. And the other thing about this posture, if you're able to spend more like 20 minutes in this posture, and I give you an audio where I guide you, it is a perfect way to get in touch with your intuition. If you have a particular issue, something deep where you're seeking guidance, where you actually want to contact your higher self, you can spend time in Makrasan and you can go deep and ask the questions that you need to ask, seek for the guidance that you need to. And I have found that even people who don't understand that process will happen to you. You don't have to know anything about Theosophy to seek that guidance in this way. So I'll put this slide back up in a minute, but I just wanted you to introduce you to that as a very practical way to embody the teachings of Theosophy, and a way that can help you and help other people. I know I had, when 2 of my children were in high school and 2 were in primary school, I'd taken a session for the 6th formers earlier in the day where I taught them Makrasan and a relaxation in Makrasan. And then I was in the playground at primary school picking up my other 2. And a mum came up to me and said, Teresa, what did you do to my daughter today? And I'm like, what? And I'm thinking, oh no, what did I do wrong? She said, my teenage daughter came home, she gave me a hug, and she was nice for the first time in 2 years. She said, that's the first positive interaction I've had with her. She said, whatever you did to her today gave me faith that my lovely daughter's still in there. And all we'd done was a relaxation in Makrasan, and her daughter had gone home and hugged her mum. So this is the power when you understand all of these principles and you can put them into practice. So another equally important way that we can embody our theosophical teachings is to start to recognize your mind, your lower mind, as a slayer of the real. So we know that both Blavatsky and Bailey delve in with considerable detail into these their respective writings on this. But do we put this into practice every day? Do we truly recognize that we are not our thoughts? And these are generated by our lower personality attached to the idea of who we are and how the world works, our own individual perception of reality, our own lens through which we view the world. Because this is where, for example, a regular practice of meditation is imperative to living and breathing our theosophical knowledge. It is the practice of Theosophy. And I'm surprised by how many people in theosophical circles don't meditate regularly. When you meditate, it's daily connection into the vibration of your soul. I say to people, it's like your soul is vibrating like a cog. And when you meditate, you bring the rest of you into that vibration, like the gears on a car coming into. And that's what we do when we meditate every day. It'll connect your heart and integrate the heart and the mind. Meditation will give you great insights into your heart. And remember that only true service can only come from pure heart intention. Meditation, one of the keys that meditation does is it teaches us to observe life as the silent witness. So in meditation, we learn to detach from our thoughts and to view them as if they're just passing through the canvas of our mind. And when we do that, we recognize, well, if I can watch my thoughts, if I can observe my thoughts, I am not my thoughts. I am that which observes. So instantly we're starting to connect with our higher self, to embody, to have an experience of being the higher self. And every time the thoughts pull us in and we go off and are distracted in meditation, that's brilliant, because we're seeing the process. I've got distracted and pulled into those train of thoughts. And then our higher self says, come back to the breath, come back to the mantra, come back to whatever the focus of your meditation is, and train your mind to stay as the silent observer. And when we meditate for enough years, enough practice, what happens is subtle changes happen in your mind until eventually you live from the place of the silent observer all the time. Now, I'll say that again, because this is important. It's not always written about. When you meditate for years, you learn to detach from thoughts, to step back and observe them, to just allow them to be. You start to realize you have a power in your mind as to which thoughts you give attention to. These are like the flowers in your garden or the weeds, and which you don't. So those thoughts that you give attention to are the flowers that bloom in your mind, and those that you don't give attention to are the weeds that wither and die. So all of a sudden you have a choice about what's going on in your own mind. And this is where we recognize meditation is the key to the mind as the slayer of the real, because meditation will enable you to eventually think from your higher self and not take much notice of the thoughts. And I spoke about this in the talk I gave at the spring conference about mindfulness, because when we are mindful and aware, when we are connected to life and present, we're not thinking. Because the thing about our unconscious mind is whenever we're thinking, so our mind is caught up in thinking, the unconscious mind takes over running the show. So whenever we are thinking in our lower mind, our thoughts run the show. When we step back, as we do in meditation, we're stepping back into the higher self. We're just observing. And what we do is we start to observe the dramas of life and realize it is an illusion. We are in the world, but not of it. We are mindfully aware, seeing life as our soul, interacting with life as a soul. And this is where the process of meditation changes your everyday thinking. It changes your mind, changes your perspective. It switches you from a perspective of thinking with your lower mind to thinking with your higher mind. And that's not always explained. I don't feel anyway. The other thing that meditation does is it changes the quality of our etheric vehicle, raises our consciousness, changes our vibration. it's as we start to clear the unredeemed, the dweller on the threshold, those parts of us that need healing. So we build that antakarana, we build a clear channel or vehicle for the soul to infuse us with prana, with soul energy, with inspiration, with intuition, and we start to become a very effective vehicle for the soul because we are clear. There's an increasing awareness of prana, of the life force energy, not just giving in to physical deterioration, but understanding you have responsibility for your physical health, for this vehicle of your soul. Not simply reading about esoteric healing and energy healing, but inviting practices into your life that raise your energy levels, your vitality, your radiatory energy out into the world. I'm going to write an article about this for Esoterica. Yeah, it's all in here waiting to come out. This importance of maintaining a high vibrational energy and staying attuned to your Buddhic nature. When our vibration is high, when we are full of prana, when we are stepping back from our thoughts, we are able to connect to our Buddhic nature, or the higher expression, the higher heart qualities are expressed readily, easily. They become our natural state of being. So unconditional love for all sentient beings develops, not just for those we have a particular attachment to. Compassion, joy, gratitude, trust, forgiveness all become part of our essential nature. And this is because we are becoming integral with our soul. Another way that we can embody the theosophical teachings is to know yourself, know your astrology, work out your rays. You'll get an indication of karmic relationships in your life, ones that are ongoing or patterns that seem to keep on recurring. There'll be particular themes for this lifetime, qualities or attributes that your soul is aspiring to develop. It's almost like, can I work out what my soul contract is for this lifetime? I need to develop this, this, and this. And I'm working on this karmic relationship with this person. Work it out. You know, start to actually take it on board, take responsibility. Because you'll have a particular color, note, vibration that you are developing in this lifetime. I often help people with this, help them to work out, what is this lifetime about? At the end of this lifetime, if I had to have a conversation with my soul, how would that conversation go? Did I tick all the boxes for what this incarnation was designed for? Did I develop the attributes and the capacities that I was meant to? Or did I sidestep the karma? Did I avoid the issues? Did I push the anger back down? Did I just not talk to that person for 20 years rather than deal with the issues? Think about that. Think about having a conversation with your soul. Understand that your vitality and your etheric body's vitality, the amount of prana that is vibrating in your system, is a reflection of the degree of soul contact. Now that's important. A person's radiatory energy is an indication of soul contact. If there are blockages to that soul contact, it will affect your vitality, and this will affect your physical health. And if you read esoteric healing or read about esoteric healing, you'll know that most illnesses and dis-ease in the body is a lack of soul contact. And it's also a way for the soul to get your awareness about particular imbalances, about things that need redeeming, about things that are out of balance. So really, the key to your soul path is to take your theosophical teachings, digest them, work through them, apply them. When it doesn't seem to work, try again. Know yourself, know who you are, embrace what needs redeeming, and accept what is wonderful, where your light is shining true, where those soul qualities are coming through loud and clear. And look at where they're not. Because really, we're guided every single day through our intuitive understanding by our soul, and every moment to be the best version of who we are, to really embody our theosophy, to be, you know, Theosophy is as Theosophy does. And a question I'm going to pose just as I finish is a question. If we're moving into the age, a question for you to ponder. We're moving into the age of Aquarius, in which group work will be the key. And if we're not able to live and breathe our theosophical teachings, how are we going to work in groups? How are we going to be effective in doing what's needed? And I'll be honest with you, the way the physical world, the material world is at the moment, we don't have the time to mess about. You are your service work. Your development is your service work. It's your service to the world. Because really, we want to learn to work in groups. And we can't do that effectively until we've done our own inner work. Remember, the world has changed from within outwards. So we've got to do the inner work so that we can start to be more effective in that outer work. And, you know, anyone who's worked in groups knows how difficult they are with all the different personalities. But have you ever worked in a group where everyone's working as a soul? Because if you've had moments or experiences of that, where people are embodying their theosophical teachings, it flows. And what comes forth from that group consciousness is far beyond the sum of the parts. It's magical. It's the seventh ray in pure action. And so by working on yourself, the self-awareness, self-development, redeeming what needs to be redeemed within you, you're going to become an effective vehicle for working in groups, because this is what's needed moving forward. We need people who can put their ego personality aside and work in groups as a soul. And I believe it's what the Theosophical Society needs more than anything. It needs its members to work as souls, to embody their theosophy and live as a soul. So I'm going to just pop up the slide for if you want to get a copy of this ebook. It's not expensive. It's about £4. And if anyone's struggling with that, send me a message and I can send you a complimentary. This is just some of the things I cover in the book. It physically relieves back, neck, shoulder tension. Someone asked me a question in the chat whether it can be adapted for people with various problems with their backs. Yes, and I go through that in the video. You can put cushions in certain places too, if it's hard, especially on your upper back or your lower back. It improves your sleep, your digestion, your immunity. I talk about theta brainwave state healing. All of this transmutes energies from the lower to the higher chakras. And if you want to get hold of it, it's available. If you just Google that name, The Magic of Makrasan, or my name, you will find it. And I want to give particular thanks to my son, who he's very good at graphic design type things. And I said, I really want a cover for my ebook that's nice and bright. And I want a woman lying in the posture with all the chakra colors coming through. And Tom came up with this, which I think he's done a wonderful job. So I always acknowledge his part in that. So I'm going to finish there and open to any questions or any comments. I know there's a couple in the chat. Modifications, yeah. If you can't lie flat because your spine is fused and you can't raise your arms, yes, you can modify it. And that it basically involves using cushions and rugs, and you might even find that you can do it more easily on a softer surface. I don't always recommend people do it on their bed. It's better to do it on the floor, but you may find that you can. Thank you. So if anybody has any questions or any comments, I'd be happy to have a go in answering them.
Thank you very much indeed, Teresa, for a truly inspiring and very, very practical session there about how we can do things. I was particularly interested in what you said towards the end about people with mental problems being out of touch or not in contact with their souls. We obviously know that we have catastrophic and almost pandemic levels of mental illness certainly in this country. I don't mean Greece where I am at the moment, but in the West generally. And I read today something that was even more strange and challenging, I suppose. And the number of prescriptions people on antidepressants has gone up dramatically over the last few months, probably to coincide with the time of the pandemic. I mean, have you got any particular thoughts about how people can practically deal with that? Because we live with this mindset that we just pop a pill, pop a Prozac, mask the symptoms, don't get to the causes, and then it's all going to be all right. And we just get into a situation where we take these things for year after year after year. Can this really be changed, do you think? And yes, obviously it should be, but can it be changed?
Yes, yes. And this is one of the ways in which I think the pandemic has had a positive effect, as more and more people are looking for alternatives because they're finding that, for example, Western medicine doesn't always work very well in this way. It is treating the body as a sort of a machine and just replacing parts or giving a drug to correct the symptoms, not look at the cause. So, for example, the high rates of anxiety and depression. Anxiety is a condition of the mind in which fear and doubt that it always has its origins in the past is projected into the future. So really, when someone is very anxious, they're becoming overwhelmed by those fears. And sometimes simply recognizing that those fears are in the past and they're not necessarily here and now, and they're not necessarily part of the future. They are in the past, and that is your mind projecting them. So sometimes people just understanding what's going on in the process of worry and anxiety can help. Things like deep yogic breathing can ward off a panic attack. People can start to recognize the triggers. They can start to tie in those triggers to emotional traumas. They can go right back to the root cause of that. Why are certain events in their life today triggering fears from the past? So there's a lot that can be done, and I work a lot in this area with private clients and with people in my yoga classes, and it is literally about teaching skills like deep yogic breathing teaching people about meditation, mindfulness, about starting to recognize what's going on in their own mind, and teaching people not to be fearful of healing these traumas in the past. And yes, there's a lot that can be done. There's a lot of techniques in different ways that can be used. For example, there's a technique called emotional freedom tapping. And this is perhaps more into the realms of sort of, I suppose, new age healing. But emotional freedom tapping is where you tap, so you create a vibration on certain acupuncture or meridian points where your etheric body meet your physical body in a significant way. And as you tap on these points, you can literally reprogram your unconscious mind. You can bring out the traumas and the fears, releasing that energy, releasing them, and you can reprogram more positive ways of thinking. The tapping solution, yes, Joanne has said, there's lots of videos, and I teach people often. It is very powerful because emotional freedom tapping connects the unconscious with the conscious mind. So you are consciously changing, by this tapping, your unconscious mind. And these, there's a lot of work in sound healing and using tuning forks and using certain vibration and certain tones in relation to chakras, if you know where the trauma is found in the etheric body, for example. Yoga and Qigong and Tai Chi will help to keep the meridians in the etheric body clear, and often will clear some of these traumas and blockages quite gently, even if you're not aware of them. People can be a bit emotional, for example, after having a massage or after having some kind of healing. And what it is they've shifted the energy that was blocked in their etheric that is linked to an emotional trauma of the past. And so we're starting to understand where science and quantum physics and therapists and ancient wisdom teachings, they're all coming together. And there are lots of practical ways. So I always say, you know, if you're open to healing, you will find, you know, if you're really open, you will find the right person to help you. So when when the student is willing, the teacher appears. It might be that you happen to come across the right book, just the book you needed, or someone sends a video and you happen to watch something and it's just exactly what you needed. Someone says something and like spark, that's it. And it's really, this is where we're looking to learn and grow from everything in our life, because your higher self wants you to heal. Your higher self wants you to learn and grow. And it's trying to talk to you all the time. And it's not just in the ways that we think. And this is really an embodiment of the seventh ray, is that information's coming through all the time. It's just how open we are to realizing. For example, the rates of depression, and I'm noticing this amongst my children's peers and amongst young people, where there's a real disillusionment, and rates of depression are phenomenal since we've had this sort of lockdown of our lives for the last couple of years. I think it's now the highest cause of death amongst young people, which is worrying. And depression is, from a esoteric point of view, is seen as unexpressed emotion in the solar plexus. And I would say in the West, it's mostly unexpressed anger, unexpressed strong emotion. And what it does is it blocks the solar plexus chakra. Now, the solar plexus to heart is linked to the antakarana. It's when your solar plexus chakra is blocked by anger that's just pushed away. We don't express anger, don't express it, and we don't look at what's causing it. We just don't. We do everything we can not to be angry, not to explode, not to look at it, to avoid it. And what happens is the solar plexus chakra gets so congested and so blocked that energy can't flow through the etheric. And given that the will, where we get our will energy, is the Manipura, the solar plexus chakra, this is what depression is. The whole system shuts down and there's no willpower. There's no willpower to get yourself out of that situation because of the blockage in your solar plexus. So often when you start to look at, you know, what was going on before the depression, what was the pattern of thinking, what was the perspective, what was the way that what was going on in a person's life, often say 6 months before there's been some significant trauma or major emotional event. And by gradually working through that, the energy is transmuted up into the heart. And when that happens, it starts to clear the solar plexus chakra. It opens the etheric body. The energy starts to flow again and the person will come right. But really, you think of prana as the life force energy. When it's not flowing, it's your life force energy that's not flowing. So of course you want to end life because you have no life force energy. We cannot imagine living without the flow of life force energy. And that's why it is so overwhelming. Depression is such a difficult condition. But for example, there are yoga postures that help with depression. They're now realizing that a lot of the way we eat and our gut microbiome, the makeup of bacteria in our gut, contributes to depression because it affects the serotonin, the dopamine neurotransmitters produced in our brain. So there is lots we can do. Makrasana is a perfect posture for someone with depression. It will gently release and unblock and clear the solar plexus congestion because it'll bring up those emotions. It'll bring up those memories. It'll bring up the things that need healing and redeeming. And it might be short-term uncomfortable, but long-term, unbelievable. It's sort of like the cocoon and the butterfly breaking out. There's a bit of pain in breaking out, but once you're free and those wings have dried, you wouldn't want to go back into the cocoon.
I suppose one of the challenges here, Teresa, is the fact that most people don't believe that they can heal themselves. They believe someone externally has to do it for them, either in terms of their advice or through drugs or surgery or whatever. Now, I guess it's quite difficult to overcome that very predominant mindset, isn't it?
It is. And certainly somebody else can facilitate, but we can only ever heal ourselves. And that's where I think true healers understand that really they can just facilitate healing. But a person, like I find people don't come to see me until they're ready to face the big ones. They find me, they come and see me, and we're not dealing with the little stuff. We're dealing with the big soul issues of this life. But they wouldn't come and see me. They wouldn't find me until they were ready. And so it's like that idea that you will find the help you need when you need it, once you're ready and you've got the courage. Remember, courage is a quality of the heart. Courage is not an absence of fear. Courage is doing what's required despite the fear. I've just got a couple of questions in the chat. Let me have a look.
Can I just say, if anybody does have any further questions, if you can raise your hand in the reactions box or just physically put your hand up, I'm sure that that would be interesting.
Yeah, I'm talking to Joanne, and she's used the tapping and yoga breathing. She said, there's so many practices and this can be overwhelming. This is where you do need to use your discernment, but also have a trust that what you need will turn up for you. And this is really where you start to have a dialogue with your higher self, with your soul. And I just have an absolute, what I need will turn up. And it does, daily, moment by moment. Yes, your son has despair about the world. I think it's quite common amongst young people now. I'll hear my kids, I'll say something to them that is going to affect something further down the line. They say, well, what's the point? It doesn't matter. The world won't even be here. And that's not an uncommon attitude for young people. So yeah, gently encourage. Could you repeat the posture you will find really beneficial for this depression? Okay, the Makrasan, the crocodile, the posture that I showed you that my book is written about, is really good for depression. There's another one called the eagle. I'm trying to think if there's anything on. If you send me an email, I will have a video, a link to a yoga class in which I teach the eagle, which is a posture that's particularly good for depression. But really the key is, once people want to heal, you will find what you need, because you step into alignment with your soul, with your higher self. And because you've stepped into that vibration, you will attract what you need. It's when other people can't make someone heal or make them take responsibility for their healing or their health, or they've got to do it. It's got to come from within them, or it won't be effective. But we do, you're right, we ultimately heal ourselves. Others can facilitate that, certainly. But that's the true healer, is just there with you through the healing process. They don't do it for you. In fact, it's wrong, morally, esoterically, soul-wise wrong to try and do it for somebody, because then you're taking away their growth and learning, and that's not right.
Okay, are there any further questions? It looks as if there aren't. So may I take this opportunity to thank you all for participating, and in particular, Teresa, for what I found an absolutely fascinating session.